War begins. Think about it. What happened when the French and the British couldn't agree over who was going to get the Ohio River Valley? They went to war. What do you think is going to happen when the British and the colonists are disagreeing over taxes? Moving toward war. Conflict between the colonists and Britain led to the battles of Lexington and Concord. This was during the Intolerable Acts, and besides just being really angry, the colonists were starting to speak out against the British government. Now, these colonists called themselves patriots, and they were colonists who were opposed or against British rule. Some of these colonists were like Mercy Otis Warren, who was a patriot writer, and she wrote plays that were criticizing British officials in Boston. And in Virginia, Patrick Henry, who was another patriot, said that he was eager for a war with Britain.
Give me liberty or give me death.
Okay. Throughout the colonies, militias prepared for war. A militia is a group of ordinary people who train for a battle. Most of the men in the militia were farmers. Remember, they were really making King George mad. Might as well just taken a picture and drawn a mustache on him. Okay? Paul Revere's ride. I told you Paul Revere did more than just draw a picture. So during this time, British leaders were starting to get a little bit nervous about the militias that the colonists were building up. So General Thomas Gage was the governor of Massachusetts, and he was British. He had orders to just put the colonists down. So he had learned that the Patriots were storing gunpowder and cannons in Concord, which is about 20 miles from Boston. So Gage decided to send soldiers to destroy the supplies. The soldiers would march at night to take the Patriots by surprise. But General Gage could not keep his plan a secret, and there wasn't even Facebook then. Patriots in Boston soon knew what was planned. They used lanterns in the tower of Boston's Old North Church to warn patriots outside the city that the British soldiers were coming. 2 patriots also rode out to warn the militia. If you ever heard the saying, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, 1 lantern would be lit if they were coming by land, 2 lanterns would be lit if they were coming by sea. So the patriots that rode out to warn the militia were Paul Revere, the silversmith, and the other one was William Dawes. They warned everybody that the British were coming. The first battles. Colonists and British soldiers fought 2 battles in Massachusetts. The British soldiers reached Lexington just before sunrise on April 19th. A small group of Minutemen were waiting there. Okay. Now remember, a Minuteman is a soldier who's ready at a minute's notice. A British officer told the Minutemen to leave. As the Minutemen turned to go, someone fired a shot. No one knows whether the shot came from a British soldier or a colonist. Both sides began shooting. When they stopped, 8 colonists were dead and 9 were wounded. Only 1 British soldier had been hurt. The British marched on to Concord. As the British searched the Concord for hidden weapons, more Minutemen gathered nearby. Fighting soon started. The Minutemen forced the British to turn back towards Boston. Many years later, the poet Ralph Waldo Emerson called this event the shot heard round the world. The British soldiers were in a dangerous situation on the way back. Patriots from the towns between Concord and Boston, as well as towns farther north and south, were ready. As the British marched back to Boston, colonists shot at them from behind trees and stone walls. More than 250 British soldiers were wounded or killed before the British reached Boston. News of the battles of Lexington and Concord spread quickly. More and more militias arrived in Boston. Soon, thousands of armed colonists surrounded the city. The British in Boston were trapped. Bunker Hill. After the Patriot militia surrounded Boston, they had some time to plan. Militia leaders decided to build a fort on a Bunker Hill across the Charles River from Boston. From there, they could fire cannons at the British soldiers in Boston. When the militia reached Bunker Hill, they chose to build their fort on Breed's Hill instead. It was closer to Boston. They worked through the night of June 16th, building a fort with dirt walls 6 feet high. The next morning, the surprised British attacked the fort. More than 2,000 British soldiers began to march up Breed's Hill. William Prescott, who was a Patriot leader, told the militia, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes."
Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes.
When the British were close enough, the militia in the fort began shooting. Many soldiers fell, and the British were forced back. Minutes later, the British attacked again and were turned back. The third time the British attacked, the Patriots ran out of gunpowder. Shoot. The British finally captured the fort, but more than half of their soldiers were hurt or killed. The battle was called the Battle of Bunker Hill, although it was fought on Breed's Hill. The British won, but the Patriots had proved that they could fight well. One British general said that winning another battle like it would have ruined us. They could not afford to lose so many soldiers. A colonial army. The Second Continental Congress prepared for a war against Britain. Remember that the First Continental Congress had sent a list of demands to the British government. When Britain refused to meet their demands, the colonial delegates gathered again and in Philadelphia in the spring of 1775. This meeting became known as the Second Continental Congress. The delegates knew that they might soon be at war with Britain. They needed more than an untrained militia to win a war against the British. They needed an army. The militia only fought for a few months at a time. Soldiers in an army would fight until the war is over. You know, they needed some dedication. Congress decided to create a new army called the Continental Army. The members of the Continental Army would be trained soldiers like the British. Congress looked for a commander for the new Continental Army. A commander is the officer in charge of an army. In June of 1775, they chose George Washington. Washington had fought in the French and Indian War. People knew he was a brave and skilled soldier. Washington rode to Boston to organize the Continental Army. The Olive Branch Petition. Many delegates of the Second Continental Congress didn't want war with Britain, but just to be treated fairly. On July 1775, they sent King George III the Olive Branch Petition. The Olive Branch Petition asked the king to help in the conflict. And what a petition is, it's a written request from a number of people. The olive branch is a symbol of peace, so the petition asked the king to help in the conflict. In response, the king sent more soldiers to the colonies, so it was on.
Now the ride of Paul Revere sets the nation on its ear, and the shock at Lexington heard round the world. When the British fired in the early dawn, the War of Independence had begun. The die was cast, the rebel flag unfurled, and on to Concord marched the foe to seize the arsenal. There you know, waking folks searching all around, till our militia stopped them in their tracks at the old North Bridge. We turned them back and chased those redcoats back to Boston town. And the shock around the world was the start of the revolution. The men were ready on the move. Take your powder, take your gun, report to General Washington. Hurry in, there's not an hour to lose. Now at famous Bunker Hill, even though we lost, it was quite a thrill. The rebel Colonel Prescott proved he was wise. Outnumbered and low on ammunition as the British stormed his position, he said, hold your fire till you see the whites of their eyes. Though the next few years were rough, General